In the forecast here. Thanks for getting your day going with us as we help you plan for the big events in your neighborhood.
The Weather Channel has you covered from coast to coast as we're watching waves of storms firing up at this hour, mainly in the central U.S. But we're also closely monitoring the Pacific Northwest because even though we haven't seen a lot of rain this morning, you have an atmospheric river in June.
No,
it's very,
so weird.
Very unusual.
We had rain yesterday. I mean, we had not just heavy rain, we had record rain at a number of spots in the Pacific Northwest. Most spots, actually.
Meanwhile, in the central U.S. and parts of the upper Midwest, it's been wave after wave of storms, and we're going to see more of that again today.
Yeah, so busy radar this morning. We'll talk through all of that. One spot where it's not raining, where we wish we did get it, which is where a wildfire is affecting us here. So, summer does mean wildfire season flares up, but thankfully the weather will provide more favorable conditions for firefighters in California as they battle flames scorching parts of the San Joaquin Valley. Right now, we have an update. The fire is 75% contained.
Which is amazing work that they've done in the last 24 hours because, they've been battling some pretty intense winds. That's really hard to get fires under control in those conditions. And of course, overnight when they're working at night and dark, that's all, you're tired.
Right.
You've been working all day. The heat has not been our friend in California either, and that's only going to continue to build in.
Yes, we'll get to next week. So we're in a short-term improvement when it comes to, I'll get that, a second improvement when it comes to the weather here.
In hurricane season, we can see storms before the season starts. Thankfully, we didn't this year, but we have now 100% of the activity left to go.
All right, we are in it. June 1st started Saturday, and now it runs through November 30th. The peak of the season is generally mid-August through the middle of October. We cram a lot into that time frame here, but we do see in the month of June things typically starting to ramp up. So this is the time of year where we start to watch some of the suspect areas maybe closer to home, like off the southeastern coast, Gulf of Mexico, Western Caribbean. There's been a few, and last year in particular, out here far out. And we question, will this be another season where we see this far out development?
The water is plenty warm to do that, especially in the main development region, which typically doesn't get more active until we get closer to the peak of hurricane season. So a lot of interesting elements in play for the season this year.
We have some active areas out there right now just with thunderstorm activity. And there's a broad area that stretches from parts of the northern Caribbean islands, like around the British Virgin Islands, extending back up there, even towards Bermuda, or actually, more towards the Bahamas. But I can tell you that at the moment, nothing is likely to develop here because the upper level winds are too strong. So that's the good short-term news.
That is short-term, though, because we're in a developing La Nina. So we were in El Nino, now we're in neutral. We're slowly transitioning to a La Nina. What La Nina does to this area is it really allows the wind shear to drop dramatically.
Right. So we may not have that wind shear as we get later into the summer. And that's certainly one of the reasons why we have these outlooks for above average activity. The warm water temperatures, another, and throughout even the main development region, we are very warm. We're warm all throughout the Caribbean. We're very warm in the Gulf of Mexico, in those areas that are most likely to develop in the month of June.
We had water temperatures in the Keys that are in the 90s. That's crazy. That's really warm. So you see the closer to land typical development, especially closer to, say, the Big Bend of Florida. That's a hot spot this time of year. And they spin up very quickly close to land. That means less time to prepare. So preparing now before we have any tropical threats save you a lot of stress.
Yeah, there's about 6% of named storms happen in June. And this is on average. July, about 8%. And not to say we get a lot of hurricanes. It's only 4%, and only 1% of Cat 3 to 5 major hurricanes, but it's not zero either. So it can happen in the month of June.
Preparing now, that's going to be really key. So some things to help you prepare: knowing your evacuation zone, having your insurance in order, deciding on a shelter, having those supplies ready to go, and helping your friends and family come up with their plan too. That can always be helpful. Well, coming up, it's the launch this first Monday. First full week of June, right? Starting off on a stormy note with severe weather firing up both today and tomorrow across many of the central parts of the U.S., the Midwest, storm-weary areas all need to be on alert for all hazards, including hail, damaging wind, and even isolated tornadoes. And it's this type of severe weather signaling a shift in the atmosphere that summer is coming. And that means for a city like Phoenix, looking good this morning, Phoenix, the return of persistent triple-digit heat. Are you ready? Highs will soar above 100 all week long. That's a big change from what we saw in May, when a lot of the really western half of the lower 48 was cooler. than average. Meanwhile, the eastern half of the U.S. was warmer than average. That was all courtesy of where our jet stream was placed and also keeping the severe weather in the central part of the U.S. Now the jet stream is going to be hanging out close to Canada by week's end, and that's going to allow heat to build in for the next few days. It already is in California and parts of the desert Southwest where we have excessive heat warnings, excessive heat watches ongoing. Las Vegas, you're in that excessive heat warning. Down to Phoenix and Tucson, the heat is coming your way, especially by the end of the week. And we're actually going to see a pattern that builds in not only to the west, but the Pacific Northwest, very likely above average. Meanwhile, as the atmosphere likes to balance things out, places like the upper Midwest and even the Southeast could be seeing below average temperatures. One exception, though, Jen, and that is Florida.
Yes, and with Starliner, we will see. That would be on Wednesday if it happens. Now, let's look at your travel, perhaps by plane. If you're traveling today, we've got to look at a couple of airports that could see some delays. Des Moines, St. Louis, two of the spots, perhaps. I don't think it'll be a bad day for air travel. It's possible you get a few delays, especially if there are thunderstorms right over the terminal when you're scheduled to land and get your baggage off, etc. So that would be, I think, the main issue. We have that area up there. We have another larger zone here to the south, which will have some road travel issues. And right now, I-44 has not been a fun ride this morning, continues not to be here over the next couple of hours, I think. I-40, another spot that we're looking for that risk of some heavy rain at times through the afternoon and evening. And then overnight, there'll be another batch that we have to look at. So delays today, Oklahoma City, Dallas, both DFW and Love Field, a possibility. Little Rock, Memphis, all could see some delays. And if you're thinking of traveling to hit the beaches, wanted to check in with that rip current risk for today. We looks like no more high in Texas, so that's improved, but we still have a high risk here around the Panama City beaches and extending over towards those 38 beaches, also around St. George Island. We've got the chance for some higher rip currents there as well. Molly?
Well, you can stay. Not every company has the same meaning.
That's a whole other problem, isn't it? Small does not mean the same thing in every clothing line.
No, and so it becomes very hard to visualize what kind of hail is coming your way. So if you
is it a men's small or a women's small?
Or is it a European clothing company, or is it an American clothing company? It is all different. So we're looking for your suggestions. You can go to Threads to send us your comments. You can share your pictures and your video with us by using the hashtag YesTV. We'll be right back.